Jim, our next question sent to CornyDriveThru@gmail.com from Eric in Pittsburgh. MJF has been established as being a chicken heel for a few years now. It worked for many of his past opponents. But now, he has gotten so physically impressive, does the chicken heel approach still work? They are setting MJF, I think he means up. They are setting up MJF to face Darby Allin, who is half his size, and he's paying Sammy Guevara, who is half his size, to be his enforcer. As great as MJF is at being a cowardly heel, should he still be doing it right now? It seems like it should be saved for opponents who look more like Wardlow, or more technically sound like Danielson. What are your thoughts? And the subject line was, is MJF's physique too impressive to be a cowardly heel?
Well, I can say, what's the questioner's name?
Eric in Pittsburgh.
Eric Pittsburgh. I can see where you're going. I can see what you're saying. But cowardly is not a state of physical being. Cowardly is a state of mind. And again, I see where you're going, but it's not necessarily that. There's a couple different kinds of chicken shit heels. It's not like everybody does the exact same thing. There was the territory chicken shit heel was usually the smaller guy, Weasley guy, hopefully a big mouth that could talk and piss people off so that then they like to see him get beat up and take bumps, which he did because he was, less than physically impressive, but he would cheat and, steal victories and use foreign objects or whatever, that he'd back away from a face-to-face confrontation with the babyface. That's a chicken shit heel in the territory days, and there's endless variations. With MJF, he doesn't particularly fit that role or that picture, but it's the idea of it. It's the big mouth. It's Roddy Piper, without really being a chicken shit, was still kind of a chicken shit heel on a more national basis because he's the smart ass, the arrogant, obnoxious smart mouth that can cut people down verbally and enrage people's emotions. At the same time, when he's faced with a fair fight, he doesn't want any part of it, but he will cheat or back jump or use a foreign object or whatever to gain an advantage. All of those things actually fit MJF. Just because he's jacked up doesn't mean he wants to fight, because he doesn't want any marks on his face because he's going to Hollywood, right? You can have that obnoxious, arrogant attitude and be a chicken shit about a honest confrontation, or you can just be it can get you heat because you're good enough, but you take the shortcuts anyway because you don't want to work that hard, or you're lazy, or you're fucking scared to get your face messed up. And with MJF working on his body more, that actually adds something to the heat when he still doesn't want to fight a guy straight up and wants to pay somebody else to do it, but he's being a rich, obnoxious asshole, and that he's pitting people that need money against his enemies, and he doesn't care whether the people that work for him prosper or not as long as they do his bidding. And a chicken shit heel also does what MJF does, but it makes sense for him as the champion, in that he takes shortcuts, he jumps people from behind, or he gets in their head and plays mind games with them because he doesn't just want a fair fight, even Steven, blah, blah, blah. So it doesn't mean he has to run from everybody. But again, like I said, part of the heat is not necessarily how jacked up you are, but how scared you are to get in an honest confrontation with the guy that the people like. Does that make any sense?
I think it makes a lot of sense. I do think that MJF, there has been too much running, and I think that kind of has to go away, and I think it will probably with time, but I see him doing that because I see him envisioning, it's probably his thing, yeah, and I'll run, because it's attention-getting, and he does it in a comedic way most of the time, and people can laugh at the heel going up, but you don't, like you said, you don't want to do that too much. You want to save it for a special occasion.
It can't be the thing where, oh, this guy's going to. And also in some cases, now that he's the world champion, in most cases, people shouldn't be laughing at any of the angles that he does. They should eventually, when the babyface gives him some kind of comeuppance, or they do the thing where they rip his fucking clothes off and leave him in his BVDs like the Steamboat used to do Flair, then you laugh, but that's a pre-angle for then the real angle will be when the heel comes back and fucking takes the babyface down and rubs his face against the concrete and burns all the skin off his fucking cheek. See, that's when you laugh that hard at the heel, that's really the pre-angle for the heel to come back and do something real heavy and real serious. Because now, as Dennis Condrey used to say, you made him happy and made him laugh, and then you make him mad because you make him quit laughing. And that's where better heat comes in.
Again, just recently, Tony Schiavone called him a prick, and then when MJF acted offended by it,
Can I say something?
He said,
yes,
that? Yes, you are. He doubled down on it.
And I saw somebody on Twitter, wherever the fuck, they said, well, why shouldn't he? You know, because he is, and blah, blah, blah. And there's a difference between the announcers, JR, would go, well, that no good, dirty son of a bitch, how dare he do that? That was JR in the Attitude Era, sitting at the desk on a headset in the middle of an arena of 15,000 screaming people, talking about what the heel had just done to the babyface in the ring. The heel could not hear him. The heel did not give a shit what he was saying at that point. They weren't even in the same worlds. JR was providing the soundtrack and speaking for the fans on what reaction they should be having. When the announcer, all 62 years old and earrings wearing of him, Tony Schiavone, stands 10 feet or closer in front of the world champion with a microphone in his hand, and they're listening to each other, and he calls him a prick to his face. MJF should have gone right up and kicked him in the fucking balls.
Pointed at him. Said, you're a prick.
You're a prick.
Shut up, you prick. Whatever he
yeah.
said.
You know what? I'm going to be a prick in 10 minutes, but right now you're conscious, and in 10 minutes you ain't going to be. Boom. That's the difference. It's face-to-face. It's confrontational. It's personal. That's where the announcer needs to back down from even if MJF's a chicken shit heel, he's more jacked than Tony Schiavone. And the announcer loses in the physical pecking order battle between wrestler and announcer. So that's the psychological difference between Jim Ross calling Triple H a no good dirty son of a bitch in the Attitude Era on commentary when something was going on, and Tony Schiavone pointing at MJF in his face and calling him names right to him.
Yeah, and Jim Ross typically didn't just do it out of nowhere. It was something going on. That no good son of a bitch. Something's happening to prompt that, not, you're a prick.
Yeah.
Yes, you are. What? What is that? Well, Jim.
There's subtleties here. There's subtleties in the wrestling business that a lot of people don't pick up on anymore.
I always love that angle where Boyd Pierce called Carl Cox a prick.
Yeah.
Can you imagine? Where else in wrestling history would the lead commentator or one of the commentators ever have stood up and called one of the top heels a prick and gotten away with it? When? Mark Lawrence in the ring? Those Freebirds. You guys are some pricks.
Yes. You are correct, sir. Yes, sir. I think Bill Mercer would have their pricks from Prickstonia.
I've been covering pricks since 1942.
Yes. And I'll tell you who else was a prick, that damn Lee Harvey Oswald. When I covered him back in, he did, you know.
He did. He covered the Kennedy assassination, yeah.
Yes, in Dallas on television in 1963. Nevertheless, where were we going?
Where we were going was the idea that MJF has to put up with this. He has to put up with a big frumpy Tony Schiavone getting up and calling him out, and he can't do anything. There's no recourse. Maybe he should sue.
You know what? It's slander, it's defamation, it's defecation, it's all those things. And if you need to sue, well, I know who that you need to call to make you happy when you do sue.
Call Stephen P. News. good show or two. Still to the rest.
Do you like how I went around my elbow to get to my wrist there on the ooh sound so I could finally end that thing?
That was good.
Anyway, folks, if you see what I did there, if you need to sue, well, then you can call Stephen P. New with impunity because he will take your call, either that or one of his minions or enforcers, as the case may be, will take your call and direct you or relay you to the proper place or person that you might need to speak to or just help you out. Now, don't call for a handout. He's quit doing that. Stephen P. New, it was last week, he was giving away $50 bills to everybody that he walked across. But nevertheless, right now, if you've been wrongfully terminated, damaged, injured, ripped apart by a shredding machine in a farm accident, whatever the hell has happened to you, if it's bad and somebody else is responsible, Stephen P. New will bring them to a court of law and exact justice, retribution, and most importantly, payment. 888-692-8084, the number to call, newlawoffice.com, the place to go, and Stephen P. New, the man to know. You know Stephen, Brian.
Of course, I know Stephen. He's
Well, yeah, isn't he
a
the
great
man
friend
to know?
of mine. He's certainly a man to know.
That's why you know him. If Brian Last knows a son of a bitch, that means that he's the man to know. So that means that you people need to know him too. So if you know New, like I know New, then you'll know that he's far from new at this. He's experienced and competent. Stephen P. New, newlawoffice.com, 888-692-8084. If you knew New like I knew New, then you'd know that New is new.
I can tell you, New doesn't want to hear you do any more singing.
Hey!